Our first exciting guest, we have Ross Rebagliati, gold medalist, Olympic gold medalist from 1998.
Yeah, everyone remembers Ross's story. We'll catch up with Ross, find out what he's up to these days as well, plus relive some of those crazy moments back in 1998. We also have some interesting news when it comes to the world of cannabis. First, we're going to hear from the chief medical officer in Colorado, of course. They are about 3 years into their legalization of marijuana. We'll hear from the chief medical officer, see what's happened in those 3 years. All the doom and gloom, is that what's happening or not? Maybe it's a totally different situation. So we'll hear from him. And the city of Richmond.
City of Richmond, they want to outlaw dispensaries.
Yeah, retail sales. Completely. They want to say no to retail sales. We have our thoughts on that. We'll bring you that as well. And immigration lawyer Len Saunders is going to join us live in studio as well. If anyone has had an issue traveling to the States, and you know, if they ask you that question, have you ever smoked marijuana? Why are you going down to Washington State? You can get yourself in all kinds of trouble. Len Saunders will be here to help shepherd us through the hoops.
Give us the do's and don'ts about border crossing.
Exactly. But first off, as I mentioned, our first guest really doesn't need any introduction in this country. But for those of you that might have been born a little bit later, here's a little bit of a reminder. First off, as I mentioned, our first guest... It was 1998. Ross Rebagliati, a young snowboarder from Whistler, was poised to leap on the Olympic stage in Nagano, Japan. Rebagliati was part of a favored Canadian team. However, he had struggled to find his form leading up to the biggest race of his life. Trailing the field going into his final run of the event, Rebagliati laid down an improbable run and made history by claiming the first ever Olympic snowboarding gold medal.
Oh, and there's the time. Ross Rebagliati of Whistler, British Columbia takes over the lead.
72 hours later, the story changed. An announcement by the IOC. Minute levels of THC were found in his system. Rebagliati was stripped of his gold medal and banned from the Games. The Canadian Olympic Committee appealed the case and the decision was overturned. 24 hours after the seemingly fatal blow, the gold medal was back in the hands of snowboard's newest hero.
Ross Rebagliati's snowboarding friends in Whistler, BC are standing behind him tonight.
The overwhelming consensus was that low levels of THC in an athlete's system was not an advantage, and the clear champion of Olympic gold was Ross Rebagliati. A cultural phenomenon in the world of cannabis, Ross is an outspoken advocate and is currently marketing his own strain of weed, Ross's Gold. Rebagliati joining us live in studio today. Thanks so much for coming in. It seems like yesterday when we watched some of that tape from 1998. Does it seem like yesterday for you, a lifetime ago, it's hard to believe it's been 20 years.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it was 20 years. It does seem like yesterday though, even though there's been a lot of things occur over the years. But yeah, no, glad to have it be 20 years ago, finally. Right. Yeah.
I want to talk about obviously what you're doing now and things, because things, as you mentioned, has changed. It's been remarkable. But before we leave 1998, what was it like in the eye of the storm in that moment? Like we talked before, you mentioned you were 26, which was probably a lot better than being 19 at that point.
If
that could help at all.
If I could just, yeah, definitely. I'm glad I wasn't 19, you know, in Nagano, and that the experience that I had prior to that, being on the World Cup tour for 7 or 8 years, traveling around the world, probably helped in many ways. Having the small media exposure that I had, though, to at the time as an athlete, probably helped me out a little bit too. So it was intense. You know, it was a 10 out of 10 on what the heck, you know. So it was just a matter of really like deciding that I was gonna stay behind cannabis and get behind it and legitimize it and create an atmosphere where I could be proud of my medal and that Canadians could be proud of it. And so I think, you know, that's been my quest over the last 20 years.
How soon after the whole thing kind of went down did you actually decide, like, I'm gonna become a ganjapreneur, as they call it nowadays, and decide that you were gonna start Ross Gold?
Well, at the time, I realized the opportunity would present itself at some point, and it was going to be a very strategic way forward, you know, from 1998 to, you know, where we are today, looking at recreational cannabis in July 2018. So I knew it wasn't going to be overnight. And I spent a lot of time working in construction and operating heavy machinery and just working, making ends meet, but at the same time taking the media requests to talk about cannabis, defending the athletes that ended up in the media, and why, athletes would choose cannabis. Why is Michael Phelps, getting busted with a bong and instead of a bottle of whiskey? And so
Right, like that would have been okay if he was walking around with a bottle of whiskey at a party, no problem.
That's
okay,
yeah,
But it was a
totally
bong,
normal.
so it changed the entire conversation.
Right, and so I had to explain why that was a healthy choice at the time, and it was taboo to say, and it was maybe at the time taking a few opportunities off the table for me, and but I knew in the long run it was the right thing to do. The truth about cannabis needs to come out, and I think for me as an athlete, as a known person in Canada, that I had a responsibility, to bear. The cannabis issue was given to me on the highest stage that the world knows of,
Whether you wanted it or
and
not.
so I felt very compelled to run with that.
It's amazing that it's 20 years later, but your name still resonates. And as you said, you knew that an opportunity would come, again, at some point down the road. It wasn't going to be overnight. Are you surprised at all? Did you always know, in the sense of that, again, if I say your name, Ross Rebagliati, most Canadians, especially of a certain age, right away, they know who you are and they take you back to that moment instantaneously. Are you surprised at the longevity of say, your name or your infamy?
I mean, who else? I can't think of. I mean, I'm not bragging or nothing.
No.
But I mean, it's been quite a run.
Right.
It was hard even in the days when I was walking on job sites. Looking for construction work. Because even then people knew me. When I wasn't in the limelight, people still knew who I was. And there was some tough moments, some real moments. But yeah, it was something that I needed to do. And 5 years ago, we put it on paper. We decided we'd come out with the Ross Gold Company, and that we would, get behind it from a health and excellence standpoint.
Did you see it coming? Was that the idea? Like you could, it's hard to tell with a crystal ball because it changes all the time now.
I kind
even.
of saw it coming. I mean, even in '98, we already had a medical, like an MMAR program here in Canada. California had already had one going for a number of years, and with me, and just like when I tried snowboarding for the first time, I'm like, this is going to be big one day.
Right.
I knew it. And with cannabis, it's so healthy, it's so good for you, it makes you feel so good. There's no hangover, there's 0 calories. I mean, there's really a million reasons why cannabis is good for you, and a million things that it can help you out with. So it wasn't hard at all for me to get behind it. And it was just about, me having a family and the responsibilities that I had as a husband and a father, and to take the opportunities that were there for me. And at the time, it wasn't an opportunity. It was almost like something that was holding me back. But I still, felt like I needed to go for it. And when I started having a family, that's when I really wanted to get serious about it and put it on paper. And being ahead of the curve, being during Prohibition, all of that was something that I felt was important.
So for a lot of people out there, they don't know exactly about Ross Gold. Can you kind of give us a little background to what it is, what you stand for?
Sure. Ross's Gold is a cannabis company, plain and simple. We have a dispensary in Kelowna. It has over 25 different strains in it. They're not called Ross's Gold, but they're all the most popular strains. We have really high-end packaging. We did a high-end build-out of the storefront, and we really branded it, from a standpoint of where we think cannabis should be, and what we would like to have people think of our store as something that they should associate to the product as well. And that's a departure, and that's something that I'm proud of, and to help lift the stigma of cannabis and introduce it to multiple generations that have been ripped off, basically, of the benefits of cannabis. Right now is one of our biggest goals.
Do you, You mentioned you built out the store. We are in that gray area right now. It's 2018, July's coming. We don't really know what's going to happen. Every province kind of will do something differently. A bit of a risk, kind of doing what you're doing?
For sure, there's always a risk. And I think if there's not a risk, it's not worth taking. And, for me, as an athlete in extreme sports and that sort of thing, it wasn't that big of a risk for me personally. I think from the business standpoint, from a corporate standpoint, yeah, it was probably a huge risk. And but when you think about the enormity of the industry, like even if our store gets shut down, I mean, just think about how small that is in the whole realm of things. Like in 10 or 20 years, we'll have hundreds of stores, if not more than that, and worldwide and bigger than that. And we're looking at an industry that's creating brand new jobs that never existed before, a tax revenue that didn't exist before. There's a medicine that wasn't allowed to be researched, and now it is, and now millions of people are going to have access to it. So there's like a ton of good news.
There still seems to be obviously some opposition to the idea, of course. One thing we always talk about is, they should take the tax dollars, earmark them for specific projects. So people that are opposed to it go, oh, look, they're using the money to whether fix that school, that playground, whatever it may be. What do you think the keys are to help kind of make the transition once it happens as smooth as possible?
Well, I think allocating the tax dollars to some social things would be a great idea. I mean, just in BC alone, we have a horrible record with, child poverty and stuff like that. And Indigenous communities don't have clean water. There's all kinds of major, huge problems they're like the big, elephant in the room that no one's talking about. And there's going to be millions and billions of tax revenue dollars coming out of the industry that, I know for a fact that the industry would love to see it go to those things and not fund,
just general revenue, right, exactly.
Not go into the big, huge whatever it is.
Right.
Like it should be up to the municipalities. I would like to think, that they would have some say over it. And I know there's going to be like a federal 50% grab of all of the taxes, and maybe that's, that it's their deal. So that's what they get to do.
So you're saying too, you have a lot of seniors that are kind of coming into your shop or that you're working with. Is that, especially you live in Kelowna, do you find that there is a big market, or is there a lot that you're helping with in Kelowna?
There are.
Are they apprehensive too when they come in? Because again, they're from that generation that was told, you smoke the joint, you might as well be putting a needle in your eye.
Yeah.
Right, this is your brain on drugs, right? And it's, they're fed up with the pharmaceutical, the costs. They're fed up with the side effects. They're just fed up, period. And they've been hearing through the grapevine, because not all of them are internet savvy the way we are. We research stuff like any second we want to know something, we just research it, and they like to talk to like 5 or 6 different friends and kind of So we've had some really great customers come in that are senior, that are looking for help in just the most simple things that they would normally have 2 or 3 different prescriptions to deal with, and we can just give them a CBD topical cream that penetrates so deep and so strongly that they don't even need their pills anymore. And just also a friendly environment where you have the bud tenders all use cannabis for some reason, or their child uses it for seizures or something profound, their brain cancer. One of our bud tenders has brain cancer. And so we have really the ability to connect with the people.
The real people.
And talk to the people in the community. And it's a social hub. It's not just a drugstore or whatever, it's somewhere where people can meet someone that's friendly, that's familiar to them. They can see the product and know that it's good. If, in the future they can order it and have it delivered to their house, but it's important that they get to see the product and they're not just online looking at a picture. Who knows where that picture is from? Yeah.
I would think people, again, especially seniors, they've been told so many things over the years, and you believe that stuff because, it was told me by the government or the official, so it must be true. Mm-hmm. It would be they would reach the point of, no, I'm finally going to walk in there, but that would be a nerve-wracking experience, I would think, for a lot of folks.
One gentleman, I literally heard him talking to people on the street about my store, and I ride my bike from my place with my medal and put it on display there every day. And I heard this gentleman speaking to a couple of just passerbyers about where the store was, and he started saying why he was looking for it and trying to justify, like, just to strangers.
Yeah.
Like, oh, why?
And they're like, oh, there's a couple more stores around the corner. And anyways, so I just said, listen, I heard you're talking about the store. Why don't you come in? I'll show you around. And yeah, because it's a big moment, and it's not just for seniors.
Right.
Every day there's someone who's for the first time coming to the store who, you know, they might be 25, 35, 45. It doesn't matter how old they are or what background they come from. They're curious and they want information.
I would love to walk in a store and to see you there.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool.
And
Like,
the
Some
gold
people
medal.
like literally can't believe it.
yeah, oh, you're that guy? Like,
You're the Ross.
you're
Some
that.
people probably come
yeah.
in just for pictures, right? And
Yeah. They hit me up on
Well, as you said,
Instagram.
marketing.
We're
As
driving through Kelowna. Okay, meet me at the store.
It's 20. It's as I said, 20 years later. It still doesn't matter. I don't know how many people I could tell you from the Olympic team in 1998. I'd be hard pressed.
Right.
But I'll remember you for sure.
Right? Schmerler,
It's remarkable.
right? The curler.
Yeah.
But we had, oh man, we just had such a good time over the years. I mean, the cannabis community is such a fun-loving and caring community, and
I find them close knit as well.
it's very much
Everyone
like
knows everybody.
snowboarding, right?
Yeah.
You know, like we knew snowboarding was going to be big, and I feel like cannabis and the snowboard culture are very connected. I mean, the whole ski culture and snowboard culture and cannabis has always been connected, and I feel like it's just a big family the way the snowboard community was, and you know, we're just looking out for each other, and you know, we want to help people.
I think we
I
got
like that.
you got a
We
question
do. We have
from
some
the viewer?
questions here
Excellent.
for you. Tristina asks, have you been affected by raids in Kelowna?
No.
No.
But they're doing some store shutdowns on the west side of Kelowna.
Yeah.
And on the east side, it's a different riding, so no
That was
problem.
actually
That big of a difference, even though it's a municipality.
We have a
it's-
conservative riding on one side of the bridge and a liberal riding on the other, and so there's a political tug of war going on.
That was the next question that Michael asked, is what's happening with Kelowna's threat to shut down all the dispensaries in the city. Do you think that eventually,
So Stephen
is the
Furr is the
threat
MP
spreading?
for Kelowna.
Right.
And Stephen, I know Stephen is a really great guy. We're lucky that he's our MP. And so, you know, with Trudeau legalizing cannabis, you know, we've, on the east side of Kelowna, on the other side of the bridge, you know, it's been very respectful how everything's been going on. And, you know, we've been following the Vancouver situation, we've been following the Victoria situation, and it really boils down to politics. I mean, this is what, weed is now a political, you know, a hot potato.
what's happening?
I'm just shocked because it usually comes down to money, and the fact that there is so much money at stake, I'm surprised there's still anyone who goes, okay, well, let's just see. Like,
Once they get reelected, because there's elections coming up,
Right.
right? Then wait and
Then
see what happens. This is
change-
all about getting reelected right
change
now.
the tune.
Yeah.
Ross, thanks so much for coming in today, man. We really appreciate
Yeah,
it.
was a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
That was
It was a
awesome.
pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Thanks. Oh,
A
shake
pleasure.
your hand too. Oh.
We'll bring you around. That's it. It's the beauty of live
shake your gold medal
Facebook.
in his hand,
Exactly. Our thanks to gold medalist Ross Rebagliati for spending some time with us today.